Hey, Quagmire.
Hey, Peter, what's up?
Not much.
Well, what do you want?
Nothing. I'm just called to talk.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Powered by the Middle Finger. My name's Mike Evans and I'm the dude behind DIY RPG Productions. I hope you're all well and kicking butt. I'm really excited because today is our first interview and it's a very special guest. Me! On behalf of Chris Mennell, the dude who runs the blog Beyond the Weird, with the sexiest talking fucking head ever, Chris Williams of Explore Dungeons, on behalf of Beyond the Weird, interviewing the man, the myth, the legend, Mike Evans. Boom. Hello, this is Mike Evans, handsome, debonair DIY RPG creator, and with me as always is Chris Williams. We are now recording.
Hey, it's great to meet you.
My ego precedes me. It's good to meet you too, joking aside. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good weekend?
Work's been just nuts. Had a lot of conference calls and stuff pop up at the last second, so sorry for being a little bit tardy.
Oh, no worries, no worries. What do you do? Where do you work?
Actually, I'm a analyst for the federal government.
Oh, okay.
And I do software development when I'm not doing RPG stuff.
Oh, cool. Very
I would prefer
cool.
to be doing RPG stuff, but I've been doing software development for a long time.
Okay, well, hey man, pays the bills, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's all good for sure. I enjoy it, but
Good.
this is a nice creative outlet.
Yep, I hear you, my friend. I hear you.
So, when did you first get started, like playing RPGs, and like how old were you? What game was your gateway drug?
I started playing role-playing games, tabletop, when I was 15, late 15, early 16, somewhere in that area. I was invited to play a game with some friends in high school, and they had me answer a 100-question questionnaire, and it was for 2nd edition D&D. I answered all these questions, not knowing that this was superfluous and something that the GM did. I was like, Jesus, this is really an in-depth process. You know, it was like literally like the guy had like, what is your favorite food? What is the, your dream thing? And I was like, okay. So I rolled up a character, and it was a dwarf multi-class, half fighter, half thief. And I got to like the first door, and they're like, oh, you got to check for traps. This is the thing that you do. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I do that, get in there. We have like a little combat or whatever. I mean, nothing. It was like super quick. And then there was a treasure chest. And they're like, oh, you got to check for traps. Okay. So, and this GM rolled everything for you. You know, he had the GM screen and secrets and all that shit. And so he says, all right, yeah, you check for traps. There's no traps. I'm like, okay, I open the door. I open the lock. And he's like, oh, you feel a sharp pain in your finger and see a little dart sticking out, and you seize up and die. And I'm like, what? Okay. And then he like dramatically rips my character sheet, like, and then he's like, okay, create a new character. And I was like, okay. And then here's your 100-question questionnaire thing. And I was like, can I just use the same question? Nope, that character's dead. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm done. I'm not, no. I'll go back to playing Final Fantasy, So, like, the next day, my buddy, who was the one who got me into the group, came over and he's like, look, I'm really sorry. He's a dick. How about I run you you and my bud that was hanging out with us, a quick game. You won't even have to make characters. You're just both human fighters. Like, let's just play, And so he ran a game, and I actually had fun. And then a couple days later, another friend invited me into his Cyberpunk 2020 / turned into Shadowrun 3rd edition, because that had just came out and they were kind of chomping at the bit to play that. And I was in that for over a year. And I had started running my own games of Shadowrun about 6 months after that. And then slowly I got more into D&D and less into Shadowrun, just because the crunch just bothered the shit out of me, you know, with Shadowrun. So that was what I cut my teeth on.
Okay. I'm pretty sure we must have had the same DM. I started back in 79 and I was 9 years old, and first session I ever played in, it was literally you walk up to a door. Okay, I open it. Oh, you're dead.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
oh, awesome. Okay.
Well, I'm really engaged now. Oh, yeah. No, it's, and I'm, you know, I don't mind high lethality in games at all, which I know we'll kind of talk about that later with Hubris, but it's got to have a purpose, and the death's got to be entertaining. You know, everyone's got to giggle when your brain explodes and flying maggots come out of your head. That's fun. Dying at a door that just because you feel a pin prick from, you know, a needle is not an exciting and engaging way to die. So,
Agreed. So, let's see. I'm gonna jump around a little bit. I have some questions I came up with, and I figure I'll just add a bunch more as we talk. Do you ever look at something and think, "Ah, shit, why didn't I do that? You know, why didn't I come up with that? I was, you know," or do you look at something and go, "Oh man, why didn't they take it in this direction?" Or
yeah. So, you know, when I look at some of the cool stuff other people in the indie RPG DIY community are doing, there's just so many cool, innovative ways to do these RPGs. You know, like I had kind of been muddling with doing my own rule system, which I still am because I can't stop tinkering. But, you know, like a couple things like, you know, David Black's The Black Hacker, Chris McDowell's Into the Odd. I had been tinkering with my own rule system, and I saw what they did, and I'm like, well, fuck, like, why didn't I think of it like that? And I had been, but just not, like, they did it first, and they had that beautiful spark of creativity. You know, Morgborg, damn, that's some sexy layout in there. Why didn't I think of that? You know, that is a book that just oozes character. And I know it can be hard to read, and obviously the doom and gloom isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I really do recommend just buying even the PDF and looking at it from an artistic point of view. As far as, like, you know, thinking of games that, why did they go in that direction, or, you know, influenced me into going in another direction is, and I'm not trying to poo-poo on anyone's parade here, but it's a bigger product, so I think people will forgive me, is sorry, hold on, that's me, never mind, I don't need it. The big one I would say is Freeport. The community guide for that was huge. It's like 300 pages, and it reads like a book. And, you know, I read through the whole thing because I like torturing myself. And the whole time I'm reading it, it's like, you know, like reading a historical fiction. And it is. It's like it's their game world that they just, as they had these adventures, the authors, whatever, fluffed it up. And I tried to run it, and it was just like, I'm going to have to make reference cards. And I'm like, no. So that was when right before I started writing Hubris, I had read that book, and that in 3rd edition, you know, just this constant grind and juggernaut of rules just kind of led to burnout. But yeah, that was a book that I read, and I was like, no, I'm definitely never doing this. Well,
yeah, somebody, and I for the life of me, I can't remember who it was, but somebody used the phrase "go all Silmarillion" on you. And I feel that I understand exactly what they mean by that. It's some of the stuff that's out there. It's great reading material, but it's really hard to boil it down and actually pull something useful out of it without a lot of work.
Right. I don't know, like part of me, as a content creator, I think a lot of the problem is people fall in love with their work, and they should. If you don't love the project you're working on, then stop fucking working on it right now, because it's going to show in the product. If you're just regurgitating crap for money, and I get it, we all want to be sustainable, we all want to make a little bit of ching for our hard efforts, but if your sole purpose is money, it's going to show. And it's going to be a soulless product. But the other thing is, fall in love with your product, but know it's not yours. Like, know that it's the people who buy it. You're just the gateway to this thing. So don't have it full of your florid prose. Don't have it full of rich history, because 98%, in my opinion, again, I know there's other people out there, but 98% of the people I've ever played with and talked to don't give a shit about your 1,000-year-old war and, all these things. They care about what happens in the game at that moment. They care about Big Bird, the, hairy belly button bartender who's been poisoning them slowly and trying to steal their horses or their magic items. And that's the impact. That's the gravitas. So give them the tools to do that in game, and not this big thing of back history, because no player, especially as we get older and get busier and are drowning in real work and kids and everything, no one has time to remember this crap. They just want to come to the table, they want to roll some dice, and they want to kill some shit, and then they want to go home and drink beer and cope with their life. No,
that's very true. So tell me about hubris. I've read the book. I love it personally.
Oh, well, thank you.
I love the concept that nothing you do matters in the big picture, in the long stretch. We're all going to die. We're all going to be forgotten. And it's fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you. That book came out of, when I started writing that was when the blog world, it was before Google Plus / the birth of Google Plus. So, I don't know if you remember RPG Bloggers Network. I think it's defunct now, but it was your RSS feed. That's how you found out about your portal to blogging world, and I would just read all these blog posts by people, and it was like a rebirth of loving RPGs for me, and really discovering the OSR at that point. And that was kind of like before it was even called the OSR / the birth of it. And like I said, I just gotten done reading Freeport, and I had been playing in games, and I was trying to recapture that feeling I had in my teenage years, early 20s, where I didn't have responsibility, and we could role play once a week, twice a week, or whatever, and we're playing for 4 to 8 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And you could have these epic storylines, and you could get through a good quote unquote chunk of content that you created as your group. Fucking 8 hours is a lifetime now. Like, I get to role play once a month, maybe twice if I'm lucky. And it's usually for 2 hours to 4 hours tops. And even then, by then I need to tap out. Like, I'm done. Like, I got other shit to do, or I'm tired, or whatever. So all these things were kind of going on, and I was looking at, and I still am guilty of this, but like trying to recapture that you're all epic heroes, and that all the fantasy books that were really coming out of that time were still trying to capture that you're Bilbo going to, the smog or whatever. I'm not a huge fan of The Hobbit, and I'm a terrible human being for that. But, it was all these epic prose, and I'm like, well, what about Conan? Like, I think I love Conan because it doesn't fucking matter. Like, nothing he does matters. And I started looking at games that way. Like, we'd get together, and I'm like, okay, guys, do you remember what happened last time? And everyone's like, I had 5 beers. I don't remember anything, and, or, oh shit. Yeah. And then they kind of start talking to each other, and they jog their memories. But I get it. Like, you're playing once a month, and, we all got our big person clothes on. And so I was like, okay, let's change the paradigm here. Doesn't matter. I try to run things as episodic as possible. Like, maybe it goes on between 2 sessions. But it really was coming out of that, like, you're not a unique person. You're not a snowflake. You are all part of the same garbage heap, you know, and celebrating that in the world. And then it also came down to DCC is, you know, really it captures this, and I really wanted to kind of turn the knob up to 11 on it, on the lethality of, you know, 5th edition. Well, this is before 5th edition, but 3.5. It's like impossible to kill characters after 3rd level, and there's this whole ungodly level of escalation in these games that just make it so crunchy. And I really wanted to reject that as a form of play. It was, if you make a dumb decision, your character is going to get dismembered and turned into a nasty creature and then kill the rest of your players. That's a consequence you have to live with. Now, I give the information beforehand because you can't blindside players and expect them to have a good time. But that all came out of that. And then, like, you know, at the time I was watching a lot of old 90s horror movies and earlier that had really influenced me, you know, like Tetsuo Iron Man, The Thing, Evil Dead, all those kind of movies, and listening to a lot of 90s thrash metal. And that just kind of all converged, and that's what came out of it.
Awesome. So as I was digging through it, I had just couldn't have been more than 12 hours earlier.
I can't hear you. You've gone off camera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Sometime in about the last 12 hours or so, I had just finished up writing out a table for random mushroom effects. And as I'm reading through Hubris, and I hit the swamp and
yep.
it, right? And I'm reading through it, and there's not a single one in that table that was a duplicate of what I had come up with, which is awesome.
Oh yeah.
But as I'm reading it, I'm like, holy shit. You know, the character gets hotter or you know, the character gets taller or shorter or thinks he's taller or shorter. And I'm just reading these and I'm buying, and I get to the one, oh, he's dead. Yeah, what'd you expect? You know?
Yep. Yep.
No, that's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, the goal was to be as irreverent as possible. And again, like through role playing, the thing I've discovered, you know, in the years of doing this is, again, the plot, cool, you know, and they want to have a good time, but you give them something to experiment with, and it takes hours, and they have fun, and that's really what matters. And yeah, like, you got to have an adverse effect for some of them, and some of them outright dying, or you have a parasite growing in you and 3 sessions later it explodes out and kills you, and everyone's like, whoa. But like, it's the fun of doing it. Like in Hubris, I have the adventure, It Came from Outer Space, and there's a medical surgical table that as you press the different buttons, you could have a good surgery or a bad surgery. So like, you could get like a screaming alien's head implanted on your shoulder that just screams all the time, you know, or you could get like a filter for your mouth so you're immune to poisons. And I found that putting things in there that are actually explorable, interactable things that have a random probability, that's what players eat up, and they spend a lot of time on it. So I wanted to do that throughout the book. That was the main, you know, the focus was, okay, you're in a swamp. I don't want to read this, but I'm going to roll on a table, and now I just have to read one line of oh, here's an encounter, or here's a you know, a cool location. And as a GM, make it up. I'm not going to give you a whole book on it, but improv, and, you know, just go with leading questions with your players. And if you're stumped and you're like, okay, we have a table, give me 5 minutes, guys, I'm going to roll on this ancient ruins thing. It gives you enough of a blueprint, and it's like, oh, the outside is made of wet, matted, bloody dog hair. Okay, you know, Samantha, can you tell me why that is? And then ask the players for it. And then when the player goes, and then, you know, especially players who aren't used to that kind of like heavy metal vibe, watching them start coming up with stuff is really fun, because they get really giddy and into it and kind of feel like weird. They're like, and I'm like, yeah, all right. So.
So, I was reading through Orcs.
Okay.
Right? love the playing cards.
Oh, thank you.
Right? That's such a great idea in terms of the reusability factor alone. I mean, you're never going to have the same experience twice. And yeah, that's really cool. And I was looking at it, I'm thinking,
Still, I can't hear you when you're yeah, no worries.
sorry. So, I'm reading through it and I'm thinking, man, how can I leverage this in my own stuff? And there's just so much there. And I think that's one of the really cool things about Hubris and about Orcs and Barbarians of the Ruined Earth is that, I mean, yeah, it's a setting and there's an adventure, but it feels a lot like a really well thought out toolkit. I mean, there's so much good crunchy stuff that you can just pull out of there and drop into other stuff without a lot of effort or conversion. I mean, like Hubris is based off of DCC, but which is based off of D&D, and so there's always going to be a little bit of tweaking, but generally speaking, it just works, and there's so many good ideas.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Have really enjoyed reading through it all.
Thank you. And I mean, I can't take credit for the playing card thing as like being my own innovation. I mean, I got the idea from Zarkov for his book, Scenic Dunsmith, by Lamentations of the Flame Princess. And that's a fantastic book. If you don't own it, I really recommend checking it out. Jez Gordon did layout and the art, and then Zarkov did the writing, and it's a adventure location where you use playing cards to generate events in the town and some of the NPCs and whatnot. And I liked that aspect of it because, I mean, when you run a module, 90% of these modules, it's the same damn thing every time. It's super railroady. There's a desired outcome at the end of the adventure, and I wanted to call attention to what that is with Hubris. I wanted to make fun of the railroad aspect of it by literally putting it on a fucking train, and you're going one or two ways. You can go forward or you can go back, but I wanted to make it like a gauntlet. I wanted to make it where it's for a convention. It's or beer and pretzel night. It's about combat. It's about survivability and what can you do? What tools do you have in that old school style? And I've been running it for 3 years, play testing it, and the stuff that the players have come up with has been a lot of fun. And then the thing I always like saying with my books is, I jokingly, but it's true, I say I have a table for that. So when they're like, oh, well, we're going to go up above the train, what are you going to do? I'm like, I have a table for that. Oh, well, we're going to jump off the train. Okay, I have a table for that too. Like, go ahead. Like, it's fine. You do what you want to do. You're not going to be safe. I will reduce you into jelly. So, and I want that to go across all of my books. Like with Barbarians and Death is New Pink, I infer of a setting, there's the tools there, but I don't give fluff. Like in all of Hubris and all of Barbarians, I think the fluff for Hubris is a page. And, right. And for Barbarians, there's like the intro, which was, paraphrased version of Thundar the Barbarian's intro. And then everything else is inferred through the mechanics or the character classes or the monsters, mm-hmm. or the tables,
So speaking of Barbarians, which I love.
Oh, thank you.
That was my introduction to you. Everything else came after.
Oh,
but what was the writing process for that like?
Really fun. I had gone to Wayne Reynolds. He's a buddy of mine. He's a Wizard Time dude, big in the DCC community, great artist, great dude, sexy beard, and he has a van that they call the Wizard Van, so pretty cool guy. I went to his house and hanging out, and he's like, have you ever seen Thundar the Barbarian? We're a bunch of role players and metalheads hanging out, and I'm like, I don't think so. He's like, dude, all right, you got to totally check this out. And puts it on, and my brain immediately realizes I remember that show from when I was 3, but I thought it was He-Man when I was a kid, so I never thought anything of it, you know. And we watched this one episode called Attack of the Amazons, and in it there's tall blue women who are super strong, and there's a sorceress who looks like a shark. There's an octopus that fires ink lasers, a mutated spider in a military hangar underwater with a nuclear warhead, and then they have an epic wizard battle on top of Mount Rushmore, which is surrounded by water for some reason. Like, okay. And I was like, this is the greatest fucking show I've ever seen. Like, it was just completely nonsensical, but it was epic at the same time. And then the other part was great is a couple years prior is I had tried to rewatch Masters of the Universe, He-Man, and I just couldn't do it with all the reused canned footage, and you know, just they're in an ice cavern, but then suddenly they're in space from the last episode because they're just reusing that animation. And they didn't really do that with Thundar. They did the tricks that all animators do to, like, you know, save money. But I was just so pumped about that setting. And Black Hack, the first edition, had just come out, and it was hammering home my point. I did a blog post like way back. The first thing I ever did on Barbarians was talking about, like, you don't need shit to run a Thundar game. Like, Black Hack has everything you need, and it's in 20 pages. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of did this little breakdown, and then after that, it was I'm at Wayne's house still, and I ordered Thundar, like, so when I got home, it would be waiting for me, and I started watching it and was like, okay, I'm gonna start kind of thinking about this. And then a colleague of mine, Talon Waite, James Hook, had reached out and said, hey, you know, I saw your post on this. You should probably write this, you know. And we talked back and forth for a bit, and then finally I said, yeah, I'm going to run with this. And then I just started going through the episodes, making notes, like what would this look like? How can you capture the feel without it being crunchy? And I think that's is a big challenge for a lot of games I've seen, like taking Thundar or taking other things, and they you know, make it crunchy, and then it doesn't actually capture that feel of the source material. And that was one of the challenges for me. But it was a labor of love, and I knew from the get-go it was going to be an expensive book because I knew I wanted it in color, and I wanted it to have a lot of art. Because again, people capture these things and based on budget, and I get it, you know, they hire who they can, and either the art just kind of falls flat for the genre, the people they're able to hire, that's not their bandwagon, whatever, or it's black and white, which to me translates into a completely different feel than, you know, a Saturday morning cartoon. Yeah, so it was definitely a labor of love, and it just, I couldn't be. I'm very, very proud of that book. I think I'm more proud of that of Barbarians than I am of any of my other books, which is saying something because Hubris I'm damn proud of. But
it's a visually stunning book. The artwork is fabulous. You know, I don't even. How do you express to somebody, short of just showing them the cartoon? How do you ask them for the kind of art that you need for that book? You know, what's the art order look like for something like that?
When I did that, it was talking to people, you know, have you seen Thundar the Barbarian? No. Okay, that's fine. Have you seen
That's where
He-Man?
you start.
Yeah. You know, have you seen He-Man? Yes. Okay, then we have something to talk about. I always find when I work with artists that the more information you can give without overloading them is the best way to go. So finding inspirational images and saying, hey, I'm thinking about this cougar bear pig monster. Here's kind of a pig that was run over by a freight train. Draw this, you know, and that's what, you know, I did. And the other thing that really helped with Barbarians is I knew I wanted to, when paying homage to the characters, I wanted 3 main characters. And I wanted the book, I wanted you to be able to read the book, go through the book, through the art, and see their adventures, which would entice readers to want to run their own adventures with an adventuring party. And so Matt Hildebrand and I talked about the three main characters, like what I wanted, and then he drew, based on my feedback, the three main characters. He did a color study. And then he did the RGB or RBG color coding, so you knew what color Zora's hair was and Took's rhino skin, you know, whatever. So anybody I contracted, I sent them that color study. And I'm like, you are to stick to this. There is no deviation from this on these things. You know, other stuff, here's your, and then I would bombard them. Like, so if, like, especially later on, I'd have some artists who dropped out, or they said, I can't do as many pieces as I thought. So I would take those pieces as I got more and more art and send them to the new person and say, here's the color scheme you're looking for. Here is the color study. All the art has to be digital. All the coloring has to be digital, because I wanted cohesion with this piece, you know, whereas Hubris,
Right.
You look at it and you can see there's some, like my wife did that in pencil, because we thought it looked really cool in like a pencil charcoal versus like David Lewis Johnson, who did it in, you know, digital ink, you know, whatever. I wanted that cohesion. I wanted that Saturday morning cartoon feel for it. So that's how I really, really did it for them, you know. And then I would send them the monster in entries for the book. Like, okay, I'm, you know, animated trash man. When I sent that to Kelvin Green, here is the description. And the other thing I would suggest to any budding RPG authors is lay out first, get your layout done. And that saves you so much more headache when your layout is done and you know where your art spaces are. Then have your layout artist block out those spaces with the measurements and the spacing. Take a photocopy, or not photocopy, but a screen capture of that, and send that to your artist. So they see where the placement is, they see the measurements, and give them the measurements too in case they can't see it. But you're going to get a much better piece of art that way, and save yourselves headaches. And that was all part of that process.
Yeah, learning how to talk to artists was a huge hurdle for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's you ask for something that you think you're stating very clearly, like, hey, I need some black skeletons.
Yep.
Well, 6 tries later,
Yep.
I finally got essentially what I was asking for, and it became a process of asking her or telling her how the art would make me feel rather than what was in the picture sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's a completely different language. It's like talking to a drummer.
Yep.
You know,
Which you're talking to a drummer.
Okay. So yeah, you totally get it.
So the other thing I'd say is always ask for pencils first. Some artists I've worked with in the past, and especially when I was more novice at this and learning the ropes, they just send me a finished product, and I was like, whoa, like what you just said, I did not what I asked for. I guess I'm gonna make it work. You know, but now I'm like, you must send me pencils, you know, because I'm not trying to be a hard ass, but this is my product. I'm the one who's, you know, doing a lot of this work, and I want what I want. So,
Do you find yourself at a point where you wish you could just focus on one aspect of the product or project, like writing, or do you really enjoy the whole big picture, bringing it all together?
a mix, to be honest. Like, I mean, I'm very thankful for everything. Like the fact that I'm talking to you and you know, giving positive praise is amazing, and it's humbling. That people buy my shit is amazing. I love the writing part of it. That's my cathartic piece. Is the writing piece of it. I'm good at it, kind of, but I hate editing, you know, like that's the chore part of it. Like when I'm done writing a book, I always put it to the side for like a week or more, because I don't even want to look at it. I don't want to think about it. I'm done. And I have to, otherwise I get into burnout mode with that project. And then I go through and I do the edits, and then my wife does her edits, and then I make all those changes, and then I send it to the editor, and then the editor does their thing, and so there's all these you know, uh, little tweaks and shit that just bum me out. Like I'm thankful for doing it, not bum me out, but you know, just like, oh man, I really wish I could continue working on my Death is a New Pink card game right now, but no, I gotta edit this book or whatever. As far as like the people aspect of it goes, that's usually 99% awesome and positive. You know, I always welcome feedback, especially constructive feedback. If you have a cool idea, cool, bring it up to me. If you come at me, well, I don't understand why you did it this way, and it seems really, yeah, fuck you. We're not having this conversation. And I get that sometimes, but even then, I, you know, kill them with kindness. Just, okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate your, you know, your consideration. This is why I did it, you know, and that's the way it's going to stay. Like when Barbarians first came out, someone had messaged me and thought I should pull it off the shelf and redo some stuff. And I was like, just that face. I just made a face at him. Just like, like picture Kermit when he's disgruntled. And it was just like, all right, no. You know?
So you had a pretty successful first Kickstarter. Other people have mentioned that, you know, sometimes when you see this is someone's first attempt, you kind of maybe give it a pass or give them a fair amount of room. But I mean, you really nailed it.
No, thank you.
Do you have any advice for other people looking to kind of follow that pattern?
Yeah, I mean, are you? So like all the kicks, I've only had one unsuccessful Kickstarter so far. I've run 4. And the unsuccessful one was Barbarians the first time when I tried to do a full print run. And I get it. It was a lot of money. You know, and I'm not shy about the dollar figures, because I think it's info that like fans, you know, supporters and just the community in general needs to understand. When you know, like, because when I charge $40 for Barbarians and it's a, you know, it's a 162 page book and they're like, that's really expensive. It's like, well, it's got 99 pieces of color art in it, which is insane for a 162 page book. And
a lot of art.
It's a lot of art. And that, like, that's the thing. Like, I'm starting a Kickstarter on the first for Orcs, and it's $3,000 alone for the art. And this one I'm trying to do an offset print run again. So it's like, it's going to be the funding goal is $7,000. But I want the art in the book. I want, to me, that's more important than any of the fucking words, because GMs are always going to fiddle with the crap, and they're going to take what they like and what they don't like. Yeah. But if there's killer art in it that gives them ideas and like, okay, I don't care about Mike's room in here, but I love the flying squid pulling somebody apart like a T-bone. Like, I'm gonna take that. So for the Kickstarter, the main thing for me that I think is one of the reasons why I've been so successful is, one, I always share the shit as I'm coming out with it. I'm not secret about it. I was posting about hubris territories for years before I wrote that Kickstarter, or before I launched it. I mean, you could go back. All the classes were on there. Most of the tables and charts were on there. All the territories were on there. So you knew what was coming. Mm-hmm. And then 2, and to me, this is the most important part, and I know it doesn't always work this way, and I understand life happens. Have the damn book done before you launch your Kickstarter. Because a lot of these Kickstarters you see, like, oh, well, we're going to write this book. I'm not backing it, you know, because anymore, just because I don't want to wait. I know the process, you know, I mean, fine. If you're eat, sleeping, drinking, and breathing it, you might be able to bang this out in quite short order. But like Barbarians took me 3 years from start to finish to write that book. And I mean, I am working full time, and I have a pretty robust active life outside of this, hiking and kayaking and whatever it does to keep my wife married to me. You know, and
I'm one of those.
Yeah, you know, oh, let's go hiking. I just want to stay inside and be pasty. But, you know, so have as much as you can, even if it's just the first draft of the book done, have that done. Because like the art for Barbarians, like I said, now again, that was a large, robust part of art. It took 7 months for me to get 8 months to get all the art done, you know, and I had a pretty diverse crew of people, and they worked their asses off for me getting this art done, but they have real lives and jobs too. So some of them are like, hey man, I'm not gonna be able to finish these pieces for 3 or 4 weeks. Cool. You know, you do you take care of your shit, and then you take care of me, you know, and then no pressure. But if you have the book done, you don't have to worry about that. Your major hurdle is done, you know, and like when I did Hubris, I had no money to dump into anything aside from finishing that book. That the Kickstarter was necessary to do any of the future points. I had paid for some of the art out of my measly paychecks at the time, you know, but with Barbarians, I had the money to start part of the process and then hope to make it back up in the Kickstarter, so I wasn't, you know, dipping into DIY too much, because I want this to be self-perpetuating. That's my goal.
Sure.
You know, but I paid for the layout, and I paid for, you know, I think 20% of the art at the time, maybe 30, and then I paid for the editing, and that was all done when I launched both Kickstarters. And so once the first one failed, yeah, it sucks. Okay, I get it. The other challenge I have with Kickstarter that a lot of people don't is the goals, the pledge levels, right? And the stretch goals. My whole philosophy on it is keep it simple, stupid. And only promise the shit that's written, only promise the shit that you can deliver in a timely manner and that's realistic, and don't flood your supporters with shit they quite frankly don't need. You know, like I don't need another, it's cool, I don't need another set of dice.
Right.
I don't need battle token. I don't need a velvet bag that smells like a ball sack. Like I don't need any of that. And you can put that in the interview.
Oh, it's going in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I don't need any of those things. And you know, I get onto all these things, and I get it. A set of dice, I'm sure, you know, you're adding that dollar amount in there. You're charging $7 to $14. It's probably costing you $3 to manufacture once you hit a certain dollar point. So you're able to put more money into this Kickstarter, and you watch it balloon out. I don't do that. And when I launched that first Barbarians one, my highest pledge level, I think, was $50 or $70. And I felt guilty about doing that pledge level, because to me it was like, so even though I had quite a large, like a decent amount of pledges at that point, there was nothing to carry me to that threshold that was needed at that time. There was issues in the RPG community at the time, and that impacted everything. And then I don't think people knew what Barbarians was at that point, even though I had been boisterous about it. After that Kickstarter, it was weird. All these people were like, oh, what's this Barbarians thing? I'm like, where were you fucking 30 days ago? You know, but so I went back, I scrubbed a bunch of the stuff and decided to do POD, and it funded in just under 24 hours or just over 24 hours. And so I knew the support was there. And I made less money than had been pledged in the previous Kickstarter, but I had more pledges because the dollar amount had dropped. Like I think I lost, when I worked it out, it was like $20 per pledge. So in the end, to me, it was more successful.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on the zine resurgence? It seems like there's just a crap load of zines coming out over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Some great, some not so much.
Right.
But, I mean, I was a teenager in the 80s. I remember zines, right? Yep. And it's been really nice. There's been a lot of cool stuff, a lot of low budget, not in a bad way.
Sometimes, but
right, lowering that barrier of entry. You know, you're not having to do these big print runs, and you're not having to spend a ton of money to get that idea out there.
Yep.
You know, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, amazing. Again, I love that people are creating content, and that, you know, again, if it makes you happy, do it. I do think people need to not. So because of the POD community, the blog, all these things, it has, and I'm thankful because you're talking to someone who has this shit because of this community. But just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that like you should never do it. I mean, really marinate on your idea. And is it innovative? Is it something new? Is it something exciting? Just because you think having a whole adventure about Cannibal Kitten Tea Party doesn't mean that it is necessarily a good idea. And I think that there's so much stuff that's being flooded in the market, and I buy a lot of it, again, because I want to support people. And then I start looking at it, I'm like, okay, well, and again, not that I'm wholly innovative or whatever. You can say the same shit about me, whatever. But I'm fucking delightful, and no one can take that away from me. But I think just that issue is like, if you're going to create something, and I wholly suggest that you do, if it's not that innovative, maybe it's just a blog post. Just because you can put it in a zine because it's cheap doesn't necessarily mean it should be.
Makes sense.
You know? But also, damn the man, save the empire, and, you know, fa la 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 la.
So what about, let's see, how do I phrase this? What is the best, worst idea you've ever had? Like, what's the thing that you just go, no, I can't.
Well, sorry, the worst idea, and then I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. So just the best bad idea you've ever had. Something where you just, it just eats at you, but you're like, no, I don't know that the world's ready for this.
I'm sure, I hope she doesn't take offense that I'm naming her here, but Carmen Vance and I want to make a butt plug dungeon. Probably for Death is the New Pink, because there's just something about a whole dungeon done in butt plugs that are vibrant pink just kind of tickles me pink. But so that's one of our bad worst ideas. We I don't know how we were getting on it, but there was like someone did a sculpture of a giant gnome, and in their hand is a giant butt plug, and this is a real sculpture somewhere of a garden gnome that's like 20 feet tall with a 12-foot long butt plug. And I was like, this needs to be a thing. And her and I started talking about doing a butt plug dungeon. So that's probably like my best worst idea. Like, you know, people get really prudish about this shit. It's so weird. They can watch Game of fucking Thrones, which just is a fucking rape show, and you know, and like the worst. How can we kill someone and make it the worst fucking idea possible? And that's okay. But my middle finger logo sends people up in a frothing tizzy.
Yeah.
You know, oh, that's really inappropriate. Really? Okay, have fun watching Boromir or whatever the fuck his name is. Fuck his sister again. Have fun with that. So yeah, I'm sure people are gonna get in a tizzy if we do this butt plug dungeon, but I think it'll be a fun romp.
That's awesome. So if money and time were not a factor at all, what would be your creative dream team to put together for a project? Like, who do you want to work with that you haven't already?
That I haven't already.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be that you haven't, but what
like,
would be your Harlem Globetrotters of RPGs?
Let's see. I definitely would love to work with Sean McCoy, of Tuesday Night Games. He created Mothership, and that is a brilliant fucking horror RPG. If anyone hasn't checked that out, I really do recommend it. It's really innovative and cool. I'd love to. I'm going to keep working with Matt Hildebrand. He's my boo, and he does good shit. I'd work with Jacob Hurst, created Hot Springs Island, and Donnie Garcia. They both did that, and they're fantastic. Kane Cathian did Ghost Like Crime. He just actually is going to be, he's one of the Kickstarter stretch goals for Hubris. Don Stroud, I would love to work with. And again, he's a stretch goal, but I haven't, aside from those, I haven't worked with them yet. To be divisive, I would love to have James Raji work with us. I know people get all flustered and fuckered that I'm friends with him, but he's a good guy. He is.
I love his stuff.
Yeah, and he's top. He does quality product. I don't always agree with what's in his books, but that's his own proclivity to put those in the books. That's the power of print. So he you know, I'd like to work with him. Chris Mennell, he's got an eye for art, you know, and he either commissions just beautiful art, and you know, he's even said, "Oh, I have a problem because I just keep commissioning art for shit that I'm not writing, but I can't stop." You know, Tim Deshay, Jeff Goad, Harley Stroh. You know, there's so many people that I'm friends with and, you know, bounced ideas off of, but to no money, and since we're pipe dreaming here, no adversity, you know, and egos and everything, like those are the ones that are off the top of my head to name a few. And then I could just delusion artists, you know, but pretty much every artist I've worked with, you know, in any of my books have been a dream. They all have met deadlines, which I usually don't have any, but, you know, like when I've asked for something, they get it in good short order. So if you read any of my books, any of those artists, if you're looking to do RPGs, I highly recommend every single one of them for work. And if anyone wants to, you know, get their contact information, they can email me and I'll give them a recommendation.
Awesome.
That would be my dream team.
Cool. So is there anything in particular that you want to mention that we haven't talked about?
Definitely the Kickstarter. There is I can give you a link to the launch page. I don't know when this is going live. But basically that, you know, obviously that would help me greatly. And then just, yeah, links to my blog, eShop, stuff like that. I have another adventure coming out for Barbarians of the Run Earth, the Slave Minds of Vindicus the Terrible. I think I can't remember if I sent that one to you.
No.
Okay, I'll send it to you. That one was funded as a stretch goal for Barbarians. Again, the adventure was done before, you know, I launched the Kickstarter, but I had to get Barbarians done before getting the adventure done. So now all the art has been commissioned for Slave Minds, but I'm not going to release it until the new year. Just, you know, just spread things out a little bit. And with launching the Kickstarter, I don't want to drain coffers too quickly for individuals. But that one's inspired by Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, minus the overt racism. You know, it's kind of like a level 0 funnel for DCC, but a Saturday morning cartoon style. And what was fun with that is, again, like after, you know, creating Barbarians was adding the cohesion into it. So it's a Saturday morning cartoon. You take charge of 4 little kids and you're trying to escape this dungeon. And I also, not that people would get the reference, I like making little Easter egg references to myself because it makes me feel yummy. I don't know. But there was an adventure for Dark Sun, 2nd edition. I think it was like the first adventure. And it was, you were slaves in the Colosseum. And the sorcerer was killed in, I think Tyr was the name of the Free State.
Yeah.
And the adventure was all about railroading the players. It was just the most railroady, craptastic adventure. It was so boring. And they were like, oh, you're going to describe all this cool shit that's going on to your players? That's happening right where your players are, but they can't do anything about it. And they can't interact with it. And if they try to interact with it, you have to stop them and tell them that's not part of the adventure. And I'm like, then don't fucking write it. You know? And so what I wanted to do kind of making fun of that in my own little brain is as the adventure goes on, I have indications on the map of when a TV turns on and Vindicus the Terrible is on a TV calling for help from all his robots and whatever. And as the adventure goes on, and again, it's completely open. You can pretty much go anywhere in whatever order. He gets more and more harried until the last TV and you see his demise basically. And it was kind of me poking the fun at that yeah, there's something else going on here. It has nothing to do with what you're doing, and nor should you feel stymied that you're not seeing it. It's just also adding that level to the adventure of you're here because of some other events, but there's no stopping you from interacting with it because it's not there. So yeah, that one, the thing about it, and like I said, I'll send it to you. I wanted to do is as I've become older and writing adventures, I hate fluff and I hate long-winded prose. Like if I run an adventure and I look down and I have to read through a paragraph of crap to get to the one point I need to know in this room, I'm immediately checking out. Yeah. And so what I've started doing is I do my adventure writing now, and this will let me see how successful this is, but I kind of don't care. It's bullet points, and I color coded it so it's a box. White is what's immediate in the room. Yellow is what if they say, oh, we look around the room. Oh, okay, here's what you see by looking around the room. And then brown or whatever the color that Matt chose is okay, in the room you see a desk. Oh, I interact with the desk. Okay, you find a button under the desk. Okay, I push the button. And then under brown is secret. So if there's a secret button, so you know as a GM everything you need to list in the order you need to list it. And as a GM, you know everybody, the room is dark and smells like farts. Okay, the players get it. Like I don't know. You walk down the long, lonely hallway, and the smell of Ophir is just let's move on. So that's kind of how I did this adventure. Is it's all these bullet points for quick reference. And again, as a person who's busy, I don't want to read an adventure 3 or 4 times to remember everything I need to remember to run it. I kind of want to just open the book and run it.
Right.
So I'm going that route. And then the other thing I've been doing with Barbarians, and it's on my blog if you're interested in looking, it's the first one is done. It's called the Raid on the Blistered Bunch. Is I was looking at how you could do Saturday morning cartoon adventures. Where most D&D games and everything, you run a dungeon dive, and it's like you go through room and room, and it's this meticulous slog of attrition and everything. And that's not Thundar the Barbarian. You don't care about fucking anything.
They're telling an entire story in 23 minutes.
Right. And I know that's not realistic in a game, because you're factoring in player results, and there should never ever be a desired outcome in a game, because if you have a desired outcome, you're going to lead your players towards that outcome. Have a couple desired outcomes, or just a nebulous and go from there. But what I've been doing is more of a flow chart. And so it's like, because Thundar, they go to like 4 cool locations in one episode. And so what I've kind of started doing is, okay, so here's your enemy base, here is your raptor nest, and then here's the sorcerer's pit of despair. And then each one you have like 3 bullet points to describe it. And then it's like, roll X number of times on this D10 chart, D6 chart, whatever. And that's what you encounter while you're there. And that's it. And then move to the next place. And then if you're running a short game because you're on lunch break and you're role playing with your buddies, just roll once. Who cares? Like, it doesn't need to be, just because it's a massive compound doesn't need to mean you have to spend 18 sessions there. If you want to, go ahead, but just kind of roll and go to the next point, So that's how I've kind of started doing this. My goal with that is I'm going to do 5 of them, and then I'm going to release them as one bound adventure.
Cool.
So that way, again, I'm not trying to bilk people who support me and I get it. People pump out adventures like they're, Tic Tacs, because that's how they make a lot of money. And I get it. And it's nice to do that. But I'm not here to bilk people and try to bleed them dry. Like, I'll get what I can out when I can, and thank you for the support, but I'm not here to like, oh, I'm going to make 18 Barbarians adventures this year because daddy got to get paid, you know?
Right.
So, and I think that's what I want to do with those going forward with pretty much all my products. I mean, obviously the ones I already have done, I'm going to get those out, but all right, here's 5 adventures. It's $20. This is going to last you a good long time, you know? The other thing I'm going to do, it's funny you mentioned the zine thing. One of the things I've always wanted to do for Death is the New Pink is release a zine, because Death is Pink is just so punk rock, you know, that was the main influence for me, was a thing called Scenarios and Nefarios. And it would be a little zine of, you know, little battle locations, doodads, and some monsters that you can add to your own Death is the New Pink game. But I would release it more in that zine format than like a full thick official book, you know, and I would do 1 a quarter or something like that. And then there'd be a, you know, limited amount of copies. And then maybe after the year's over, for those who didn't get the zines, that's when I would put all 4 of them into a single volume and release them once a year or whenever I get them done, you know?
Yeah. Like an annual. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and do that. So those are all a few of the things I'm working on. And then you like Barbarians. I don't know if you've heard this, but I teamed up with her name's Jessica Lockwood. She's Lockwood Animation is her personal company. She works for a game company right now, but as well. But she's doing an animated intro for Barbarians of the Run Earth.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So my goal with it is, you get new players or even old players, you know, and you want your own little kickstart to your intro. But if you have people who do not know what this game is, you just show them this 1-minute intro, which is, it's basically, you know, an homage to Thundar the Barbarian. And now they know everything they need to know to play this game. You don't need to tell them anything more about the world. They watched a 1-minute intro. Now they know, now they can play.
No, that's good.
So she's working on storyboards right now. We just did the scratch test, the beat test, and the minimalist storyboards. Now she's hammering out the storyboard, and once we approve this, get the storyboard board, that's when she starts the actual real hard work of doing the animation. But it's something I'm really looking forward to.
Me too. I look forward to checking that out. So last question. What's your backlog look like? I kind of got the impression that you've got some stuff in the can already that you haven't pushed out.
Oh yeah. Going medieval on your ass for Death is New Pink. I've kind of sidelined. I mean, it's done. It's first draft. Because I wrote it, and it's very much Death is New Pink. So it's like a fuck you, you know, silly, nonsensical dungeon dive or a fantasy version of this. And then I got it done, and I kind of started looking at it, and I started looking at Barbarians of the Run Earth, and I was like, they're a little too similar. Like, even though Barbarians is kind of like the one game I have on my entire library that you could have your kids play, and it's okay. You know, but so I was kind of worried about that. So I need to pick it back up and look at it. And I may just scrub it completely with changing it. I have an idea on salvaging some of it. I have the Forever Dungeon, which is, and I have some of it up on my blog. But the idea is, and Kelvin Green has done a lot of the art, and we will be moving forward with that one very soon.
I love Kelvin's stuff.
Oh yeah, Kelvin's fantastic, and he's a joy to work with. But again, like everybody I have is. But the idea is, it's kind of like dungeon tiles, but you generate your dungeon as you play. Mm-hmm. And so like even the GM doesn't know what's going to happen. And you can create a goal, or it's a party game where it's like, oh, we just keep going until you guys want to be done, and then we're done. And the idea came about. Are you familiar with Adventure Time?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Do you remember the episode of Adventure Time where they were going through the train and Finn got addicted to like the prizes, and it was making fun of MMOs? Yeah. That was kind of the idea. Is like, why isn't there just this forever dungeon where players, like, again, I get together every month, and sometimes they just want to kill shit, and they don't want to do anything else. They don't want a story. well, here you go. I don't have to plan anything. And the idea with the game is I have a book and it's going to come with it. It's going to be 50 cards. And then the booklet is going to have, I think I have like 15 or 20 charts and tables in there, but I'm only going to do like say 10 options. And then there's going to be blank lines after that for you to add another 2 for D12 or another 10 for D20, and add your own stuff to it. There will be because one of the things I did do is the cards are numbered. And so then I had lines for what happened in that room previously. So when I redrew because I would shift the dungeon every time. The dungeon always changed. So every time they'd go back in there, they came across what I called the no-no bird, which was a pink flamingo that had a mullet. And that bird knew everything and could talk. And so every time they came back, I had notes on what had happened. And again, just bulleted points. And the no-no bird was mad at them because they didn't bring them mutated cow, buttermilk and all those things. And then the entire booklet is going to be done in, thanks to my wife's idea, in a Bauhaus motif. So even though it's punk rock, I'm still saying fuck you and doing some refined art with it. So it'll, so I'm doing that. I have my own DIY rules, which are on drive-through for free, play testing those. I have a Hubris module, which will, I'll be running at Bride of Cyclops Con, which is a level 0 funnel, heavily inspired by Evil Dead 1. When my players who play with me regularly, when I ran them through it, their look of shock and awe and just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It'd be really interesting to see people who don't run with me normally here, because I'm pretty graphic and gnarly when I want to be on it. So that'll be fun to see their shock. High Noon is an Old West game that I'd written for White Box, but I may redo the rules with either mine or Black Hack. I'm not sure yet. It's just not where I want it to be. And my wife is she's from Montana, so she's really big into the mountains and nature and all that. And if I don't do that one right, she'll kill me. So working on that. And like I said, I have these mini adventures for for barbarians. Maybe doing a second edition of Death is the New Pink. I have the Orcs Kickstarter, and then the 2 adventures from Dawn and Kane. Kane also has a Death is the New Pink module called Mega Rise Mayhem he wants to release. Dave Lewis Johnson wants to do more Gothic stuff. So the list goes on and on. I have a YouTube channel coming out. I'm working on a Death is the New Pink card game. And if that does right, I'm in talks with someone to potentially turn it into a video game app.
Wow.
Again, this is me doing this in my free time.
Right. What's that? Man,
yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I think I've probably got everything I need.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you. It was a pleasure. Sorry I yammered on so much.
Oh, no, this is all good for sure. Whenever you post the recording and shoot me all your links and everything, I'll start putting it all together.
All right. Sounds good, Chris. Well, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you have a good one. I'll see you online. We're friends on Facebook, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Thought so. Okay.
All right.
All right, buddy. Be well.